Angel Olsen been dropping music for years now consistently, and has been consistently pretty good as singer-songwriters go. You can't really go wrong with checking out any of her albums, even as far back as her early days in 2012. I mean, you've got fantastic songs like The Waiting on there, which is brilliant, and then of course going further on into her more popularity days, I guess you could call it, she's definitely garnered a bigger indie sort of cult following since the start of her career, and hasn't really dropped massively in quality either. Like it's still been pretty good. While I don't love any of her albums that much particularly, I don't have a huge, you know, connection or attachment to any one particular album. I feel as though still that despite that, I still think she's really good and is an artist worth checking out every time she drops something. Even if you don't necessarily get a great album, you're gonna at least get like one or two fantastic songs. I feel like that's like the standard that she's at. Like every album has at least a couple of brilliant songs. Shut Up Kiss Me is one of the highlights of her career easily, and then you've got All Mirrors from her last album, which was absolutely stunning, a spellbinding, stunning, strings-filled song that is just wonderful. Honestly, so good. I wasn't keen on the album overall, but I still think that song is brilliant. And this is all leading up to me saying that once again she hasn't dropped an album that I love, but the consistency is still there, and it's personally for me an improvement on her last album. And once again, there's a couple of absolutely fantastic tracks that I will be listening to for quite some time. Those couple of tracks come right at the start. I'm not going to beat around the bush. They are the first two tracks on the album that I think are easily their best tracks on the whole thing. I want to start with Big Time just because of how endearing it is. I wouldn't necessarily describe her music in the past as endearing, not as an attack on her music, but it's just not a descriptor I would necessarily use for the writing that she tends to use, or the lyrics or anything like that. But this track right here, endearing, is the word for sure. Just some really lovely lyrics. You can't really fault this as like a sort of love ballady type track with a really nice classic country twist, which is a nice change from what we've heard from the past couple of albums from Angel Olsen. Although she had a bit of an Americana, you know, bluesy country roots beginning to her, you know, musical career, she hasn't really touched on this sound since the early days, but she's back on it and she's sounding really good over this. I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm a fan of country generally anyway, but I think this track particularly is so good and reminds me of like the best Laurie McKenna songs, or, you know, even like paired with some like Lucinda Williams. It's really good. Got that kind of rustic feel to it, like a Courtney Marie Andrews. It's so good. She does tend to delve deeper into this though, and she goes really minimal on tracks like All the Flowers. It's lovely on the ears, but I think sometimes on tracks like this particularly, you could have a bit of a boost in the production somewhere just to kind of give the song a bit more life. It's lovely on the ears, but it's just not very memorable. It's nice when it's on, but just doesn't really carry beyond that for me. Through the Fires, again, perfect example of that, even more perfect than All the Flowers actually. This one is way too pedestrian, it's too casual. It could be anyone in the country genre making a song like this, and Angel Olsen doesn't do enough with her vocals on this track to really bring it and sell it as her own. But going back to one of the other highlights, I mean, All the Good Times, this is fantastic. This is honestly one of my favorite songs of the year so far. I can easily see it end up being on my year-end list. I just love the way it builds. That build, explosive crash towards the end of the track is just brilliant, and her vocals sound fantastic over it. The horns, the instrumental is just so full. This is what I was saying, the liveliness that some of the other tracks are missing is just exactly what I wanted when you hear this track. The start of it as well, by the way, the vocals got a bit of like a Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen thing going on, which I think is really cool to see. And that influence really shines through and just brings Angel Olsen just at her best. It's so good. It's so good. There's some fantastic other tracks as well. This Is How It Works, I like, just for how lethargic her vocals sound on this one. It really sounds like she's given up, and when you you know, peer into the lyrics and the writing, you can see that she is hitting a point where she feels like she's giving up. I love Go Home as well. I think this is a really standout track, just for the way it builds and then reels back. It kind of like keeps going like that the whole way through the song. I think that's a really effective tool. And when it reels back, you know, you can really feel the pain in her voice. It's a really good song. I really think it's clever as well when she's like, I feel like dying, and then it kind of pauses and the next line is dying to find out. It just sounds really dramatic and, you know, intense when she says it, but then she kind of, you know, changes it to actually she's just dying to find out something. The final track brings in more piano and has a bit more of a heartbreaking ballad feel to it, although lyrically it feels a bit different to that, honestly. There's some depressing elements to the track, but there's a bit of like a longingness for that person and how, you know, she'd drop anything for them and just go wherever they're going. She's talking about chasing the sun for you. It's not in the same way as, you know, the callings, wherever you will go. Obviously that's a very distinct song about following someone wherever they'll go. It's got a similar lyrical idea to that, I suppose, but in terms of how they sound, they're very different. If you're looking for something to do, drop everything I'm doing, nobody needs me here. That's what I mean. There's still that depressing element to it. It's like every track can't escape that, you know, pessimism. The idea that she'll go wherever this person will go and join them, but in reality, it's actually probably because wherever she is isn't like valuing her as a person. But with an album like this, I guess you're going to always pick up lyrics like this because it's generally quite a sad feeling album. But yeah, overall it's good though. I mean, it's one of those albums for me where like you don't need to go through every track individually because so much of the album has a similar consistent sound that you could keep saying the same things for every track. I don't want to waste your time. I just want to be here to tell you that it is a good album overall. It's nice vocally, it's very impressive, perhaps even her best album yet vocally, honestly. I was really taken aback with All the Good Times. I thought that was easily one of her best vocal performances ever. And I don't say that lightly, I do mean that. I think it's a fantastic vocal track. And there's even some other tracks throughout the album as well that are vocally very impressive. Musically, it's stripped back, it's delicate, it's got a country feel to it, which I like. I'm a country fan. And yeah, overall, I'm impressed. I think this is good. I'm going to go 6.5 out of 10. What stops it from getting higher than that is just the casualness of this, and at times the familiarity of how, you know, she's kind of playing it a bit safe with some of the tracks musically. They're very, very simple. And I've personally just heard other country artists, other Americana artists, just take the sound a bit further and bring the songs more to life. I think if every track sounded like the first two, I'd have probably gone really high with this one, but unfortunately it didn't end up being like that. Still good overall though. And that's it, that's my review. Hopefully you agree. I'd imagine people will disagree because they'll be, you know, raving about this album. I've seen a lot of praise for it, fair enough. And I'm sure you have your reasons as well. So thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do have a good day and goodbye.